The rain slid down the cathedral windows in silver streams the night Evelyn Carter became someone's wife before she had even figured out who she was as a person. The church smelled of roses, candle wax, and expensive perfume, but beneath it all she could still smell the laundromat detergent from the tiny apartment she shared with her sick mother on the south side of Chicago. At 19, her hands trembled inside silk gloves she never would have touched in her real life. Across the altar stood Damien Laurent, Billionaire CEO, 34 years old, unreadable as stone. Have you ever stood inside a moment that didn't feel like your own life anymore? Evelyn had worked as a junior assistant at Laurent Holdings for 6 months before everything changed. Her mother's medical debt had swallowed them whole. Collection notices piled on the kitchen table beside pill bottles and unpaid electricity bills. Then Damien called her into his office one cold November evening. "I can solve all of it," he said quietly, standing beside windows overlooking downtown lights. "The debt, your mother's treatment, the apartment." Evelyn stared at him. "Why would you do that?" His jaw tightened slightly. "Because I need a wife." The silence that followed felt unreal. "What? It's temporary," he continued. 1 year. Public marriage. No expectations beyond appearances. Evelyn laughed once from pure disbelief. "People don't marry strangers like business contracts." "They do," Damien replied. "Especially people like me. What would you do if survival stood on one side of the scale and your freedom stood on the other?" Her mother cried when Evelyn finally agreed. "Baby, you don't owe me this." "Yes, I do," Evelyn whispered, holding her frail hands in the dim hospital room. The wedding became front-page news overnight. Billionaire marries young assistant. Comment sections shredded her apart. Gold digger. Opportunist. Child bride. No one asked why a 19-year-old would agree to something that looked so cold from the outside. No one saw her sitting alone in hospital parking garages at 2 a.m., trying not to break apart. On their wedding night, Damien brought Evelyn to his penthouse overlooking Manhattan. Marble floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A silence so polished it felt lonely. She stood near the bedroom doorway still wearing part of the gown, unable to breathe normally. Damien loosened his tie without looking at her. "You can relax. I won't touch you." Evelyn blinked. "What? This marriage is an arrangement, not ownership." Something about the way he said ownership made her chest tighten unexpectedly. Then he crossed the room and placed a small velvet box into her trembling hands. Her breath caught. "What is this?" "Open it." Inside was not jewelry. Not diamonds. Not anything she expected. It was a faded silver key attached to a tiny hospital bracelet with a little boy's name written across it. Noah Laurent. Evelyn looked up slowly. "Who is Noah?" Damien's expression changed for the first time since she met him. Not softer exactly. Just wounded in a way rich people usually hide better. "My son," he said quietly. The room went still. "You have a child." Had. The word shattered something invisible between them. Damien sat down heavily near the window, eyes fixed on the city below. "He died 3 years ago from leukemia." Evelyn's throat tightened instantly. "I'm sorry. He was 6. Damien swallowed hard. His mother left when he got sick. Said she couldn't survive watching it happen. The silence after that wasn't awkward anymore. It was human. Damien rubbed his hands slowly together like he was trying to hold on to something already gone. That key opened his hospital toy box. He carried it everywhere. "Why are you giving it to me?" His answer came barely above a whisper. "Because you looked at your mother the same way I looked at him." Evelyn felt tears burn unexpectedly behind her eyes. All day she had felt purchased, managed, trapped, but now she saw something entirely different sitting across from her. Not a billionaire. A father who never survived losing his child. The city lights blurred outside the glass while neither of them spoke for a long moment. And for the first time since the wedding began, Evelyn stopped feeling afraid of him. 7 months later, winter covered New York in dirty snow and ambulance sirens echoed through streets glowing red at midnight. Evelyn sat beside Damien in a hospital hallway after her mother's final surgery. Exhaustion hollowed both of them out quietly. Damien handed her coffee. "You haven't slept. Neither have you." He gave a faint smile. "I forgot how hospitals feel." Evelyn studied him carefully. The coldness people feared in him was mostly grief wearing expensive suits. "Have you ever mistaken pain for arrogance because it was easier than looking deeper?" Her mother survived the operation, but recovery was slow. During those months, Evelyn saw sides of Damien the world never would. He sat beside janitors and remembered their names. He funded pediatric cancer wings anonymously. He visited Noah's grave every Sunday morning before sunrise. One night Evelyn finally asked, "Why me?" Damien stared ahead at the snow outside. "Because everyone around me wanted access to my money." He paused. "You were the first person who looked embarrassed accepting help." Evelyn laughed softly through tears. "I was terrified. I know." By spring, their contract neared its end. Reporters waited outside buildings hoping for scandal. Damien stood in the kitchen one evening while sunlight touched the skyline gold. "You're free now," he said quietly. The lawyers prepared everything. Evelyn looked down at the papers but didn't touch them. "What if I don't want to leave?" Damien froze. The silence between them carried every sleepless night, every hospital hallway, every wound they had slowly witnessed in each other. "You deserve a real life," he said finally. Evelyn stepped closer. Maybe this became one. His eyes closed briefly like the words hurt. Then she placed the tiny silver key back into his hand. "Noah mattered," she whispered. "And so do you." Damien broke then, not loudly, not dramatically. Just one shattered breath from a man who spent years pretending grief had no weight. Outside, New York kept moving like always. Taxis honked. Snow melted against sidewalks. Strangers rushed past strangers. But inside that quiet apartment, two damaged people finally stopped treating love like a transaction. And Evelyn realized something life-changing. Sometimes the people who seem hardest to love are simply the ones carrying the heaviest sorrow alone. Damien stood motionless in the kitchen long after Evelyn placed the silver key back into his hand. The evening light pouring through the penthouse windows painted the room gold, but nothing about the moment felt warm. It felt fragile, like one wrong sentence could undo everything they had survived together. Evelyn watched him carefully. For months, the world had called her lucky. Social media still posted photos of designer dresses, gala appearances, and luxury vacations she never asked for. Strangers envied her life without seeing the hospital waiting rooms, the sleepless nights, or the grief that lived quietly inside the man standing across from her. Have you ever realized someone's silence was actually pain trying not to drown them? Damien finally spoke, his voice low. "You shouldn't stay because you feel sorry for me." Evelyn shook her head immediately. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" The question hung between them, honest and terrifying. Outside, Manhattan glowed beneath cold spring rain. Inside, the air felt too still. Evelyn stepped closer slowly. "When I first married you, I thought you were rescuing me." Her eyes filled slightly. "But I think we were both just trying to survive something." Damien looked down at the key in his palm. "Noah used to hold this whenever he was scared," he whispered. "Even during chemo." His throat tightened. "The night he died, I promised myself I would never need anyone again." Evelyn's chest ached hearing it. "What happened to you after that?" she asked softly. Damien laughed once, bitter and quiet. "I became efficient." That answer hurt more than tears would have. Because she understood exactly what he meant. He buried himself in meetings, numbers, acquisitions, routines, anything that kept him moving fast enough to outrun grief. But grief always waits. Evelyn reached for his hand carefully. "You don't have to do that anymore." For a second, Damien looked genuinely lost, like no one had ever offered him permission to stop pretending. Then his phone buzzed sharply across the counter. He ignored it. It buzzed again, and again. Finally, he glanced at the screen, his expression hardening instantly. Evelyn noticed. "What is it?" Damien hesitated. "Board meeting. At 10 at night. They found out I'm stepping away from the merger." Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Because of me?" "No." He looked at her carefully. "Because I realized I built an entire life that makes money faster than it lets people breathe." Silence followed. Then Evelyn smiled faintly through tears. That might be the first honest billionaire sentence in history. A small laugh escaped him before he could stop it. And there it was again, that crack in the armor where something human still lived. Weeks later, Damien took Evelyn somewhere he had never taken anyone since Noah died. A small cemetery outside the city. Rain tapped softly against black umbrellas while wind moved through the trees with a low whisper. Damien stood in front of a small headstone, hands trembling slightly in his coat pockets. "Noah Laurent," Evelyn read quietly. Beside the grave sat tiny faded toy cars. Evelyn looked at him carefully. You still bring those. Every Sunday. His voice nearly broke on the last word. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that even time refuses to carry them fully away? Damien crouched slowly, adjusting one of the toy cars with shaking fingers. He used to believe every broken thing could be fixed. A sad smile touched his face. Guess he got that from me before life taught me otherwise. Evelyn knelt beside him without speaking. After a long silence, Damien finally whispered, I was terrified to care about you. She turned toward him. Why? His eyes met hers, vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. Because losing Noah nearly destroyed me. And when people survive that kind of pain, he swallowed hard. They stop risking love. Tears blurred Evelyn's vision instantly. She reached for his face gently. But you still gave me the key. Damien closed his eyes briefly at her touch. Yeah, why? His answer came quietly. Because part of me hoped someone would eventually understand what it meant. The rain softened around them. New York traffic hummed faintly in the distance. And standing beside a child's grave, Evelyn realized love was never the perfect fairy tale people imagined from outside expensive windows. Sometimes it was grief shared honestly. Sometimes it was staying when leaving would feel safer. Months later, reporters crowded outside Laurent Holdings after rumors spread that Damien canceled the merger worth billions. Cameras flashed wildly as he exited the building beside Evelyn. A reporter shouted, Mr. Laurent, is it true you walked away because of your wife? Damien paused, then looked at Evelyn before answering. No, he said calmly. I walked away because she reminded me there's a difference between building wealth and building a life. The crowd went strangely quiet. Evelyn looked at him with tears she no longer tried to hide. And as they walked toward the waiting car together, hand in hand, she understood something life-changing. The most broken people are not always the coldest. Sometimes they are simply waiting for someone gentle enough to hold what hurt them without letting go.